Hey everybody, so a couple of folks, well, one, asked me to do an unobtrusive measures video, and so I'll do it really quickly. I don't want to give too many examples because, you know, that's the point of the discussion board, is for you to come up with examples. So I'm going to give one or two examples for each type of unobtrusive measure. First talk about what it is, then give those examples, and then that'll be it. So hopefully the video won't be very long. So first, what is an unobtrusive measure? Well, an unobtrusive measure is any measure in which we are able to record some and derive some numerical representation of some behavior without the participant being, or participants being, entirely aware that we are recording anything about their behavior. And there's a number of reasons why we would do this. For one, probably the biggest one that looms in my mind is reactance. When a person knows that they are being observed, it's not uncommon, it's not unreasonable to expect them to alter their behavior in some way. All right. Now, one of the great things, one of the strengths of unobtrusive measures is that, in addition to getting that kind of unfiltered version of behavior, also it's more ecologically valid. All right. So we get something that is more akin to what you might see in the population or in everyday goings on. So, in general, there are a couple different types of archival or unobtrusive measures. Probably the first one, certainly the one that I've seen most often used in research, it's just simple observation, but again, it's kind of disguised observation. So, in one study where they measured the chameleon effect, which is automatic mimicry, so you rub your face, somebody else, not thinking about it, mimics you. So they end up rubbing their face. Probably the biggest example that most people are aware of with automatic mimicry is yawning. So if one person yawns, it's not uncommon for people around them to begin yawning. Not necessarily because they need to, not because they have the physiological goings-on that elicit yawning, but because they've seen someone else yawn, so they automatically mimic. That's the chameleon effect. Now, one way that they first documented the chameleon effect is by having participants come in with a confederate. They thought the confederate was another participant, and perform a picture describing test. So they had a table full of pictures, and they would just describe what was in the pictures. Well, off on the wall was a box that was leaning against the wall, and it had a camera in the box, but pointed right at the participants. They could see the confederate, and every time, because the confederate would purposefully do certain behaviors such as tapping or shaking their foot or touching their face, and then they were then able to use the recordings to measure the number of times that the participant touched their face or shook their foot. Of course, they had the control condition where the confederate didn't shake their foot or didn't touch their face, and they compared the number of times that the participants in each condition touched their face or shook their foot. Now, yes, I can hear people say, well, isn't that an ethical violation because you're recording them and they don't know about it? Of course, that's why after the study you tell them, hey, in the debriefing, remember, hey, you've just been recorded. If you don't want us to use your data, we'll delete it. Just let us know. And usually participants are good about, unless they did something ridiculous, and in that context they usually don't, they tend to be fine with allowing you to use that data. So that's simple observation, and there's tons of things you can do with that simple observation. Just disguise, just don't let anybody know that you're observing them while you're observing them. Of course, you have to let them know afterwards, but while you're observing them, you don't let them know. Another, archival. All right, they clearly don't know that you're observing anything about their behavior with archival data collection methods. So it's completely unobtrusive. Now, what's an example? So one measure of aggression looked at the effect of visible violent effects on day-to-day aggression. All right, so the study that comes to mind easily is there was a major boxing event back in, I believe it was the 70s. Back when boxing was more popular than it is now, and they looked at violent crime rates the week after the nationwide publicized boxing event and the week before. Lo and behold, violent crimes increased after the boxing event compared to the week before. All right, and I believe they also looked at like the next year in the same week of the year when there wasn't a nationwide publicized boxing event. So this is an example of using an archival method. Okay, so another type of unobtrusive measure. So we've already covered simple observation, archival methods, natural use methods. Okay, so we can infer the operation of certain mechanisms from how people use certain products and which products they use and which products they produce or purchase. Okay, so for example, if you wanted to look at when racist ideas start getting adopted into people's cognitive networks, you can look at you could give a white doll and black dolls and look at the wear on those dolls across homes, and look at the comparative wear for black, white, Hispanic, Latino children. So the wear would be your measure of preference. So which doll do they prefer to play with, the black doll or the white doll? Well, if the white doll is worn down more, so there's more evidence of use, then you can tell a preference for the white doll. All right, which could be used as an indication, as an operational definition of a racial preference. Okay. Another is product use. So, for example, there's quite a bit of work showing that when competing for mates, men tend to compete in the domain of income. So, when there are more women than there are men, that competition is steeper. Switch that. When there are more men than women, the competition is steeper. So if men compete in the domain of income, one way we could test that hypothesis is look at different cities with different sex ratios. So let's say city A has more men than women. So we would expect there to be heavier competition in that city than in city B, where there's more women than men. If there's heavier competition and men compete in the domain of income, then we could look at the sales records for luxury products. Let's say Ferraris or some other luxury brand car. We could look at the sales records of luxury vehicles in the two cities. We could take several cities that differ by that ratio, and we could compare the amount of luxury vehicles sold in the cities in which there are more men than women, and compare that to the amount of luxury vehicles sold in cities where there's more women than men. No. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So more men than women compared to more women than men. So, and if again men use income to compete for women, we would expect more luxury vehicles to be sold in those cities with more men than women. So that's an example of product traces. So natural products. So these are all examples, all types of unobtrusive measures. Okay. Again, all of unobtrusive measures involve recording something about participants' behavior that allows us to infer something about the mechanisms driving that behavior, but allow us to gauge their behavior, to measure their behavior in a way that they don't know that they're being recorded. They don't know that anybody's looking at their behavior. Again, no reactance, greater ecological validity. It has its weaknesses because, depending upon the method surrounding your particular measure, surrounding that particular DV, you have more or less ability to draw a causal inference. But it certainly has greater ecological validity, and like I said, it can get around the problem of reactants. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to talk about with this video. If you have any questions, please send them my way. But that is it for this video. Take it easy, everybody.